Nobody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody in 149th Street at the bench.
Psst, guys. Today we got ourselves an interesting video. A lot of you guys have been really interested in like hybrid style and how it's done, how it functions. So I figured we can break down this piece, that way you guys can get some insight on hybrid style and how I do these pieces. And we drew this up over on my stream on Twitch. I got a link to my Twitch in the description down below. So for anybody who doesn't know, a little bit of background on hybrid style. Hybrid style is a form of graffiti that's kind of in between two-dimensional graffiti and three-dimensional graffiti, because it has a different fundamental set than both of those. And that different fundamental set is combined and fused with fine art, which is what makes it its own genre of graffiti. That's how different art forms are created. You create a different art form by creating a new fundamental set for that thing. But it has to still be able to function. And that's why it's referred to as a hybrid style, because it's a hybrid between realism as well as graffiti, while maintaining both fundamental sets. And that's one of the key features of hybrid style. That's like the most important part of hybrid style. So the way this piece actually started was I began with the G, and I did this a really long time ago. And I never came back to it. And really the big bummer was after I did the G, I immediately realized that I wouldn't be able to paint this. I wouldn't be able to go ahead and put females on this, which is why I wouldn't go ahead and paint it. You see, with these pieces, I really like to fuse them with females on it. That way it can help solidify and ground it as a realistic piece of graffiti that's interactable by its environment. And that interaction is really what I look for. Because I'm working on a page, it can be difficult to put the vanishing points off of that page, because then you get a little bit more inaccurate because your ruler has to go ahead and shoot across the edge of the page, which as a result is going to give you some inaccuracies. So I decided to keep them on the page, which causes this really stressed perspective, which sure it works, sure it's fine, but that stressed perspective does limit you to what you can do in some cases. And in this specific instance, it really wasn't going to allow me to do the Lizard, the Tribesman, and Cyclops the way I had wanted to. So I opted to not do those, and instead I kept the idea of the pillars here, with the pillar for the back of the R. And I actually really liked this area because you have the hook of the G, this is all fill-in right here, and that fill-in kind of curves into the second perspective in order to shoot for the R's letter structure, which then turns into the, the back part of the R, which turns into the pillar, which I thought was a lot of fun. Now here we have a lot of organic shapes, and the eggs are kind of derivative of that whole entire lizard idea. So we have a lot of organic shapes in here that we then carried into the R, which I thought was pretty fun. We still have to abide by letter structure though, so we do have the back of the R here, and then we have the front of the R, the top bowl if you will, 2-box R, and then you have the leg of the R that comes down. And this provided us with two really fun opportunities. We can go ahead and take the leg and shoot it upwards. It goes right from the R structure directly into the I structure, and that I structure goes to the second perspective. And this is the interesting part, because now all of this right here would be the fill-in color, which you'll notice a little bit of a paradox, if you will. The second thing that this R provided us with was a really cool opportunity to do kind of like this shell effect. As you can see, the letter structure is kind of like split off here, and it creates a little bit of shell that goes around the R's structure and 3D. So you have this raw bit of like concrete here, which is just going to help us flow with texture on the concrete pillar. Because if I were to choose to paint this, that's what these would be. They would both be kind of like that concrete color, that cement color. So you have this shell, comes over, and then the 3D becomes the letter structure. So once again, in typical graffiti, you have 3D, 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 3D. The form changes, goes to second perspective, but this is still the 3D color, which that's the interesting kind of like paradox that we've run into here with the eye. Because now this is 3D color, but this is fill-in color. So it'll just create a nice contrast between these two areas, which is always a lot of fun. We go ahead and we put an exterior detail here that you might see in typical pieces, but we put it going to the second perspective, and we shove it into the letter I, because we have the same thing happening down here, so we need that to happen up here as well. And we even have it right here, so that's pretty dope. We need more of these organic shapes, and what's a better spot to put a circular organic shape than the tittle of the eye? So we go ahead and shove that right up there. We put this broken pillar in here to reinforce letter structure, and then we have really vertical organic form that also helps to reinforce letter structure. Now we had to keep the top left, the top right, the bottom left, and the bottom right really plain, because if you notice we have a break in detail up here. We don't really have too much detail in this area right here, and we don't have too much detail in the leg of the R, so we needed some area to not have much detail to help reinforce letter structure for the eye. we don't want to distort it too much, right? And instead what we can opt to do is just use texture when I go ahead and oil paint this. And if I paint this on a wall, then we probably won't have any texture here in these areas. Also, another little like critique is if I can get rid of this, if I could do something totally different here, I would still have this circular kind of bit and forms going around, but I wouldn't have this part right here. I would change this probably for a hole of some kind, rather than whatever the hell this is. I don't really like that. So once again, as we said, this is all supposed to be fill-in color, but check out how this fill-in portion of the eye shoots up for the letter structure of the M. But this part, if you notice, is actually 3D. So now the fill-in becomes 3D, and they retain the same color, which is always pretty dope. And because the M shoots to the first perspective like the G and the R, it gives us a lot more room, so we don't have to deal with having smaller amounts of room if the M's letter structure portion was shooting back to the second perspective. So this is going to help our letter and name weight. As you can see, we did that thing again that we did over here on the eye where we had this exterior detail shoot into the letter. We do the same thing here on the M. And then the same thing we did here on the R with that same exterior detail, we do it again here on the M. This is just going to bridge the gap between the M and the I and the M and the R. From here we can have more organic shape go throughout the letter structure of the M. Notice how it still follows the letter structure though, right? We're not distorting the letter structure too much. In fact, we still even have the M's letter structure, but it's being cut into by this organic form, as you can see right here in the 3D. Who is texting me? We then come over here and we need to have a little bit of a break going back towards letter structure and getting away from those organic forms to redefine this area right here. So we go ahead and we do that, and this gives us the opportunity in order to have a lot of 3D in this negative space over here. That way we can put more organic forms in there, which these organic forms can easily transition into the top portion of the M, allowing for more organic forms, which I honestly think this is some of the most fun I've had with organic forms in my pieces, is right in this area. This was a blast to go ahead and draw. We have more of another pillar up here, and I really wish I would have actually kept the leg as a pillar, which we actually ended up doing that concept in a different hybrid style I can share with you guys in another video. But the reason I wish we would have done another pillar is because not only would it have contextualized this better, but it would have allowed us to avoid this really stressed out perspective. Now once again, this stressed out perspective is not an incorrect thing. You can have this happen and it's perfectly fine. It's just personal preference. I don't like really stressed perspective. That's just me personally. So once again, we have a lot of organic shape here, and as you can see, we have the organic shape make the serif of the M. But this serif needs form because I know that this portion of the M needs to be letter structure. So we go ahead and we take these organic forms and we shoot it up this way, in which we go ahead and we do that sleeve thing we talked about over here. Except this time, the sleeve is the organic form, and it's covering the letter structure. So we can mesh those two back here, we can throw it over this way, indent the letter structure, which would be this right here, shoot it back up into depth from perspective, and then carry the letter structure down. Now I actually forgot a piece of 3D. It happens to the best of us, but bam, right there. And I don't actually have any more blue pencils, so we're just gonna have to go ahead and use some purple for that. No big deal, don't mind me. This area has to be pretty plain, so like that we contain the letter's structure and we don't distort letter structure too much for the sake of style. Granted, this is a wild style hybrid style, so of course the style threshold is going to be extremely high. Don't get me wrong, but we still have to reserve some simple breaks in the letters. It's actually something you learn in fine art, where giving the eyeball time to rest is really beneficial for a piece of artwork. So that's all that's happening, is I'm giving the eyeball time to rest on the image, so like that people can focus. And this is stuff where we would add details like little cracks in cement, you know, little dips and stuff of that sort. That's all this is. Now if I were to go ahead and paint this, I would have to come up with a background, which I don't, once again, I really don't like backgrounds with really stressed 3D points. Not to mention the fact that I would have to go ahead and do the cast shadows for this as well, which would be a lot of fun to do for this one. But for that reason, I would probably never paint this, is simply because of these perspectives. So I think in the future, what I'll end up doing is I'll come up with a general concept and idea on paper, and then I'll take it into Photoshop. That way I don't have any restraints to how far my perspective can be, and I can shoot these things all the way off the canvas really far away for a much more subtle effect, which will allow for a much more natural background and it'll allow me to put models on it, which is really what I want to do. You see, these perspectives are great for high tension images or like really dynamic images, but that's not really what I do. Like, I do a lot more natural feeling work, right? A lot of my work kind of borders realism and it looks very natural, so I would like my graffiti to reflect that. That way I can go ahead and put some models or cartoons on it pretty naturally. So that's why I don't really like these. If anything, I can also do the piece a lot smaller, that way I can have more room for the vanishing points, which should also be pretty dope. Alright guys, that's the critique of my own work. Once again, this is a style I absolutely love. Let me know if you'd like to see some more of these. I would certainly love to do this for you guys. Also in the comments, let me know what your critique for this piece is. Everyone's welcome. You know, even opinions are welcome. Feel free to put them in the comments down below. This is all in good fun, so you don't have to worry. And hey, check it out. If you're interested, we drew this thing over on my Twitch, which is pretty dope. I'm pretty sure if you like my videos here, you're gonna love my Twitch. We do fine art over there, like these paintings that we have in the background. We do graffiti, we do digital cartoons, we play video games when I don't have any artwork to get done. And overall, we just have an amazing community over on Twitch. I want you guys to be a part of it. And also, check it out. If you're new here and you haven't watched any of my videos before and it's the first one you're seeing, why aren't you subscribed? Why not? We come out with 2 art videos a week. Is that not enough for you? Are you that needy? I'd love for you guys to become part of the family. Hit that subscribe button and I'll catch you guys in the next video. As always, thank you guys for watching. Have yourself a safe and beautiful day. I will catch you guys in the next video. Did I say that already? Anyway, goodbye. Peace.